So we're gonna move away from durations in time now. So we just finished talking about continuation area patterns. As there are continuation patterns, there are also what we call reversal patterns. Now, someone asked me earlier, I think someone asked me, how do I sell ahead before my support line even breaks? One of the techniques that you can use is to identify if there are any reversal patterns happening already in any of the positions that you are holding. Now, the lower two, broadening megaphones and rounding tops, are minority reversal patterns, meaning they happen very rarely. 90% of all reversal patterns are actually the top two over here, which are double tops and head and shoulders. Now, can you guys give examples of maybe issues that have possibly reversed? JFC could be a broadening megaphone. If you want to look at ABS-CBN, before it, nung nag-top siya 2 to 3 years ago, broadening megaphone, one of those rare ones, right? Interesting case study. When did prices peak? Prices peaked October 2015. When did peak earnings happen for ABS-CBN? When did they have their best earnings? May 2016, right after elections, which was somewhere over here, right? Somewhere here. Which means that if you had decided to buy it even 5 months, 6 months before the elections, you would have lost money and decided to sell it when the earnings announcement was released. Why? Because prices move ahead of fundamentals, and you'll see that prices started to discount the May earnings, the peak earnings, 1 to 2 years prior to it happening, which is evidence then and there that prices will always be a leading indicator of actual or current fundamentals, actual or current economics, actual or current events. When prices are breaking down or when prices are breaking out, what's the first question that people ask? Ano nangyayari? Diba? Diba yun yung unang tanong? You're holding a position, it's breaking down. You need to sell it, cut the position, cut the loss, but you're saying, what's happening? May disclosure ba? May disclosure ba? May news ba na lumabas? Ano nangyari? Diba? Sometimes may nangyari nga, but half of the time, at least half of the time, mostly majority of the time, you're gonna see the news or the actual reason manifest itself 50% into the trend already. Head and Shoulders. Can anybody give me an example of Head and Shoulders? So you see Ayala Land here. Let's zoom in 1 year. So what do you guys see here? You see a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. You always have a neckline over here, right? And when the neckline breaks, that is already your confirmation. Your confirmation that your trend has already reversed lower. Whatever you've bought here, as soon as this breakdown happens, then you're already out of the position. Completely out. Why? Because your reversal pattern is now your confirmation that your trend has reversed from upward to downward. So you might want to check out AP for a huge Head and Shoulders pattern, right? So there's a huge Head and Shoulders pattern developing in AP. If you also look at maybe SM Prime currently, SM Prime is currently running up because of the MSCI announcement, but it's pretty much close to the previous high. So I would already be mentally preparing myself for maybe a potential double top. Or if prices continue to persist higher, then maybe a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Kasi you see MACD looks like it's gonna cross up. So those are the scenarios that I'm already mentally preparing myself as I'm already looking at some of these issues. You see the MACD over here, which means it's about to cross up. Diba? So typically, when you have a MACD cross, that's when you have a long expansion candle. So we'll talk about MACD later in the indicator section. But ilang beses na ako pinaasa ng mga ganyan eh. If you take a look, let's say for example, ng mga east-west. If you take a look here, prices look like it's going to cross up. You see that? Mas okay nang dumiretso siya pababa eh. Alam mo yung pinaasa ka pa. Di ba? Pinaasa ka pa. Tapos dumiretso pababa, di ba? So typically, I would only count the cross up as soon as it crosses up. Because especially in an environment now, where you have the market reacting off the 236 feeble resistance, that's where the index reacted off today. And you have the US right now, which at the onset looks like a breakout of a triangle. If you look at the S&P, Dow Jones, but my personal opinion is if you look at where the US is in today, when you look at that breakout, you're not going to see a lot of volume. You're not going to see a lot of breadth, which is typically what you want to see in a breakout. And if you look at the breakout indicators that I usually look for a healthy breakout, it's not entirely there. So I'm still a little skeptical as to whether US can go on a new high. In fact, I'm more of 60% it's going to continue moving lower, 40%. It still has a fighting chance to move higher. So, yeah. So yung breadth simply means, okay, for example, the market 2 days ago or 3 days ago, or the US market broke out of the triangle that people are talking about. But if you look at the breakout that particular day, in terms of advancers versus decliners, if I'm not mistaken, that breakout was accompanied by more decliners than there were advancers, which means that that breakout was only pushed by a handful of certain stocks, while the majority of the market didn't share the same positive sentiment that comes with a breakout. So that's when I say breadth. Typically, when you have a breakout day, you want it to happen in strong volume, obviously because it's an area, it's a resistance line that where there's a lot of sellers and you want big volume to indicate that a lot of those sellers were taken out in the form of new buyers coming in. And second, you want that happening across a broad set of issues. You want to happen that across a broad set of issues in terms of the issues, and you also want that to happen in terms of value traded, meaning up volume versus down volume. Meaning how much money was used to in prices that went up and how much value was traded in prices that moved lower. And if you look at the US breakout that happened 2-3 days ago, it happened on low volume, happened on low breadth, and happened on low up volume. So which for me tells me that I'm still a little skeptical about the index in general. Although may mga individual issues that are moving higher naman, majority of the issues I'm still a little skeptical about. But obviously, since I follow price above everything else, if I see price follow through higher, then I have to set aside my opinions and to just stick with price. Okay. So where are we? So any other, I'll take one last stock for a possible reversal. CLC. So Dennis Uy, believer. So, CLC is, thank you for asking this, because when I look at types of area patterns for reversals, this applies not only on reversals from the upside to the downside, but it also happens on reversals from the downtrend to uptrend. Which means that if double tops are found at the top, you'll find double bottoms happen at the bottom. In the same way that head and shoulders are found at the top, you're going to see reverse head and shoulders happen at the bottom. So obviously here, when we look at CLC, this is not something that we look for a reversal from top to down, correct? Because obviously the general predominant trend is going where? Down, right? So for me, so some would maybe use this channel. This may be the best operating technical technique that you can use for CLC at the moment. You'll see that prices are continuing in a high, low, or you can say high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? So my concern would be is if prices break below this downtrend line over here, at that point of which would start possibly accelerating the move lower. That would be one scenario. I would maybe label that as a minor scenario. The more probable scenario that I would label is that this is a corrective pattern over here. Because typically, if you look at corrective patterns are usually bound by a channel. But anyways, which means that the best case scenario for me would be for prices to start to move higher and to break out this resistance line over here. So you have here, you have a low, lower low. Without even zooming into the indicators, you can see a slight bullish divergence, which we'll teach later. A slight bullish divergence, a bounce of support over here, although this is a bounce of support inside a downtrend, which is a higher risk environment rather than an uptrend. But at least for CLC, I would be very, since prices are in a downtrend, I wouldn't necessarily just hope for the scenario of this breaking out. Prices are in a downtrend, so I should at least give the downtrend a lot of respect because that's the predominant trend at the moment. And until it can prove that otherwise in the form of prices breaking out of resistance, I would only participate in this if prices broke out of this resistance over here, right?